I'm here to give you the presentation about the tax appeal process. We call them assessment appeals. We do that because when you appeal, you're appealing the value that we have placed on your property, not the amount that you're paying in taxes. Next. This is your notice of assessment postcard. This comes out at the beginning of the year. It'll be coming out next week. This has the amount that you paid in taxes the previous year. For this reason, a lot of you might use it for your income tax or give it to your tax preparer. But what it really is a notice of assessment to let you know what we have your property assessed at so that you can decide whether or not you want to file an appeal. So it will have your value for 2019 and underneath your value for 2018 so that you can see if that has changed and figure out where you want to go from there. Next. Okay, so should I appeal the value of my home? Next. This is our neighborhood map. I put this into the presentation because a few days ago when I was giving the presentation, some people had some questions about how the wards and the redistricting. I don't know what's going on with that.
Thank you.
Okay, so why I added this to the presentation is because this is the neighborhood map. When we're looking at your value, we're looking at specific small areas that have like homes. So Chambersburg has 4 different sections. Wilbur has 5 different sections. When you file an appeal, you want to try to find something in your immediate area, but if you need to go a little bit outside, that's okay too, just as long as it's an arm's length transaction. Next. Okay, so when you get your postcard, you're going to look at that value and ask yourself, can I sell my property for what it's assessed for? Next. If you think the answer is no, then you're going to need to provide us the evidence. If you think the answer is no because you know of some things that have happened in your neighborhood, some properties that have sold, that's the best case scenario. Because you know about those properties, maybe you've even been in those properties, and you'll be able to testify about them if we get to the stage where you're going to a hearing. If you feel that your value's okay, but you just feel that the taxes are too high, we have some other things that are programs for property tax relief. Next. Okay, so where can you get the evidence? Like I said earlier, if you're very fortunate, you happen to know on your own about some things that have happened in the neighborhood, but if not, you can ask a realtor to help you with that. They don't charge you for that, but you just need to be knowledgeable about those sales yourself. You can't have somebody else fill out the form, and then when you get to the county, they're going to ask you, how does this compare to your house? You need to know about those sales if you get to the hearing stage. There are non-usable sales that we would say you would not be able to use. Foreclosures, short sales, sheriff sales. Those are some things you might find on the internet and not realize there's some factor involved that makes it a distressed sale. Next. Is there any other kind of evidence I can use besides sales? Typically no, but if there's an issue that's specific to your property, if something's happened to your property, if there's something with a neighbor's property that's affecting your property, you can give us evidence about that. We'll come out and inspect and see if that's something that's really affecting your value, especially if they didn't get in to inspect during the revaluation process and you feel like whatever it is not being taken into consideration. Next. This is the petition of appeal. So the top portion is just basic information about your property, your name, your address, your block and lot. If there's anything there that you don't understand, leave it blank. We'll help you fill it out when you come in. Under the assessment portion, you're going to fill in what's on your green card, and then under the requested assessment, we just need you to give us a total. You don't have to break it down between land and building. Just what do you think the property's worth? What are you trying to prove that it's worth with your comparable sales that you'll provide there? Next. So you'll be filing this with us here at City Hall, but also at the county. Technically, you're filing a county tax board appeal, but we get a copy. We'll be the ones to deal with you first before it gets to that level. The deadline is always April 1st unless it's a reval year, and we are not in a reval year. So April 1st this year. Next. So after you file the appeal on time, we may contact you to set up an inspection of your property. We're going to do that to make sure that the information that we have is correct. That's one of the easiest ways that we can settle an appeal. Maybe they didn't get in and they said you had a finished basement or a finished attic, or maybe they have the bathroom count incorrect. Those are things that we would want to look at and see if we can settle with you based on making a correction. Next. You're going to receive a notice excuse me, of a hearing, regardless of whether we come to a settlement agreement or not. That is because there needs to be a hearing to memorialize any agreement that we may come to if we do reach an agreement. So if you've spoken with us, you've signed some paperwork, you're still going to get that notice because we're still going to present that settlement to the board. You don't have to appear if that happens. So, next. Okay, so if we cannot agree, we don't agree with your comparable sales or whatever the case is that you're trying to make, we're going to put on a case, you're going to go ahead and give your testimony before the board, and then the tax board's going to explain to you that you'll receive a judgment in a couple weeks with their decision. Okay, next. Okay, that's all that I have about the tax appeals, but we can talk about, have questions now before I go into the senior deduction. Yes?
I actually have a few questions.
Okay.
You mentioned that foreclosures would not count towards the assessment.
Right.
My question would be why? Simply because in real estate, when you do a comparative market analysis, foreclosures do count towards figuring out a property's value before you put it on the market. So, and it does affect your property value when trying to sell a property. Wouldn't the fact that properties are foreclosing kind of work in our benefit in the sense that obviously these properties aren't being able to sell for what a homeowner would want, so they're basically letting the bank take it and sell it for whatever they want because the market, there's no market for selling a property what some of these properties, like myself, is being assessed at.
Okay. For tax appeal purposes, we do not look at those sales. Banks may look at those sales when they're lending you money because it's in their interest to look at the lowest common denominator to do a conservative loan. But for a tax appeal, your assessment is presumed to be correct. So in order to overturn that, you have to come up with some evidence that shows that it's not. And that is one of the categories that's not, that we cannot use to overturn the assessment.
Okay, and my second question, so my property was assessed, it went up about $25,000. I got a letter saying that my basement was finished, which is not, and I never finished it. Why would that assumption be made if, in order for me to finish my basement, I would have to come here and pull permits, which I'm sure that's information the assessor could get to see if a basement is finished or not?
When the revaluation company does a revaluation, they start from scratch. They do exterior inspections and then they attempt to do interior inspections. They don't come to City Hall and look for the permits, they don't come into our records. That's the way the whole town is done in uniformity because they just don't have the time to do all that. So what they do is they send you out a notice saying this is your assessment. You have the opportunity to come in and speak to us about it. If you don't come in and speak to them and correct those things, then that's what the number that goes on. And then you have the opportunity to file an appeal and also get that corrected.
I understand that. My question, and I'm sure you can't answer it, I don't know if anyone from that company is here, but I just don't understand why you would assume someone has a finished basement except for the fact of trying to raise somebody's assessment so that the city could earn more money from property taxes.
Sometimes when they don't gain access, they assume that. I don't know that that happened across the city, but it certainly could have happened in your case, depending on who did the inspection. If they didn't get in, okay, finished attic, finished basement.
Okay.
That does happen as a matter of course in revaluations.
But there's no reasoning behind it. It's just their discretion to assume it's finished.
Well, the reason is they didn't get in, so they assume that it's the best possible condition that it can be.
Okay.
Well, let's say no, if I may. Where there are foreclosed properties, or distressed properties, and you say that's not a consideration at the assessor's office, is there an independent oversight that says, we understand your position, but the homeowner's position is the properties are foreclosed around him or her? Are you making the final decision, or is there an independent
The county board is the independent.
county court?
That's why you're appealing to
So
them.
you may have
So
that
if
position.
you can't agree, you have another place to go.
right.
And then after that, you'll have another place to go, which is state tax court.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else about tax appeals?
Now, let me just ask you something about your
Sure.
idea you talk about assuming things. When our property has been hit by taxes 4 times, around us we have all these vacant buildings owned by the city. It's been there for years. So you're assuming that my building costs, I have to pay so much taxes, but you have all these buildings that are all burned out, all vacant. I'm paying a whole bunch of damn taxes. They don't pay taxes there. You're assuming I should pay more, even though you know my neighborhood's all burned out. Vacant buildings owned by the city for 20, 25 years. I lived there 60 years already in my life. And if you're assuming that you could go in there and go up there from outside, look at my property, and give me a tax bill to pay for the whole block, that's what I understand, because that's what you did last time you were in my house. And I've been hit 4 times with taxes. We've been there 60 years. We rehabbed the house. For the past 10 years, all the houses across the street from my house are vacant. And all falling down, roofs falling down. And you're assuming that the tax I'm paying almost $4 going to $5, that's my taxes. You're
Generally,
assuming-
it's not that we would want you to
assuming-
pay
No, no, you're-
more because there's vacant properties around you.
No,
That's
no,
not the way that
but
it works.
the way it works, not for what you're saying, for us it works that way. Because we're paying top dollars for a rundown place, got all these burned out buildings that are owned by the city of Trenton.
Have you filed a tax appeal before?
Never mind, we file and you deny it. For whatever reason you gave us. Whatever reason you give us. And I live on West Hanover Street. West State Street, got a $500 million development going on there. So you're assuming, you're telling us, assuming we are a senior city, old people, we're paying all these taxes because you're assuming, and the people that you hire.
The only assumptions are the condition of an interior of a building that hasn't been inspected.
So I should
So
be.
if you haven't had that, file an appeal and we'll come
No,
out.
you
Our
can-
office will come
no,
out, not
you-
the reval company.
No.
Someone from our
I'm
office
talking
here.
about you, your office. Let me finish. I'm not assuming that you went to my house, you looked at it, you saw the houses next to me, across the street, I'm paying more taxes, they're not paying nothing, and you're assuming. I think that's unfair, an idea of you or the county turning us down, that's abusive.
Right,
That's
well,
what I'm saying.
I can't speak to what happened there
No,
because I
don't
wasn't
speak.
there at the
I want you to
hearing.
speak.
I don't know what kind of evidence you gave.
What
If you
evidence?
just went
The
there
one
and
you
talked
just put
about
up-
vacant
the one
properties,
you
they
just
would
put
have
up
said,
there.
we need some evidence.
The one you just put up there. So let's move on, because I don't want to take too much of your time. But I don't want to assume, I don't want to
He's
sit here and assume.
100% right. He's my neighbor. My name is David Rodriguez. I am the representative of the 15th District of West Hanover, on the west side.
Okay.
And what he's saying is 100%. I had 3 letters to come to my house to see how much I did or whatever. Nobody came over.
Okay, so,
They're talking about finished, like the young man said, finished basements and everything. But you're giving us these taxes only because that's what you think. Am I right or wrong? Because that's what you think, because the guy came over and supposedly we wasn't there. I got 3 letters and I have them home and I will bring them. But nobody came over, and I stayed home all that time to do that. Right across our street, we got so many burnt houses. Okay? We try to keep our houses as beautiful as we can. And to code. Because you could come in my house and everything is up to code. You could go to his house, everything is to code. But yet, we get railroaded with all this mumbo jumbo. I'm sorry to tell you, but that's what you're telling us.
What I'm
That's why
telling you is if the problem was that nobody inspected, we're offering to do that. I can't go back to what happened before.
But I got the letters for them to come inspect. And
Okay.
they never came.
I'm sorry about what happened with the revaluation company and that there was miscommunications and no one came in. What I'm telling you now is how I can help you now. So I have staff in my office that can come to your house, that can take a look and make sure that everything that we have is correct. And you're not gonna have to get railroaded at the county because we'll handle it by correcting it in our office. You won't even end up down
We've been
there.
railroaded so much, especially on the west side.
I have another question based on something you just said. I just want to make sure that I understand what you're saying. You're saying that when a property is assessed for its value, you keep mentioning that you have to go inside the property and look at the property.
Yes,
Okay, so that's how a property is assessed, not by sales in the area, not by
no, it's a
the
combination.
location.
It's a combination of those things.
Okay, so the interior of the property is a factor when assessing a property's value. I just want to make sure I understand that.
Yes, both things. Both
Okay.
things are taken into consideration.
Okay,
Because you could have sales on one block where a larger house sells with more amenities than something else, so you have to be able to adjust somehow.
of
for those
course,
differences.
but the interior isn't a factor in a larger house. You can look at the square footage, which is public records, and that's going to factor a 2,000 square foot house versus a 1,000 square foot house, of course. But I just want to make sure I'm understanding that if you go in a house, because of the interior, the quality of the interior of the house, that's a factor in assessing the property's value.
Yes, that's a factor.
Okay.
If you redid your kitchen and your bathrooms, you're not gonna have the same value placed on the one next door that's got original everything and needs to be completely updated. So that's a factor in looking at, that affects the sales price.
To who? Because realistically, in the city of Trenton, you could put gold cabinets in your kitchen. It's not going to raise your property up because there's no market for properties in Trenton. They're not worth pretty much anything. What I paid for my property 10 years ago, my property is probably worth $60,000 less, but my property taxes have doubled since I purchased my property 10 years ago. I had a license, real estate license for years, so I understand real estate. I just don't understand the city's position where you can say, oh, if the interior of your property is renovated, then it's worth more. The reality is it's not worth more. Not
the
when you're
city's
trying to sell
position,
it.
It's the state's position. It's the way that the entire state is valued. We're an ad valorem tax state. So the condition of your property matters.
That's what he's trying to say.
Yes.
The way you guys assess the tax is not comparable to how we live. The assessment company sent me a letter saying, oh, we're going to come out and, like this gentleman said, I took off my work and never showed up. And then, according to their records, it comes back to you and says, okay, they assume that my attic's finished and my basement's finished, and that's not the fact. But my taxes went up, and nobody came in to see what kind of state my house is in, as opposed to the neighborhood houses that are falling apart and falling down, and like they were alluding to, the owners of those properties don't pay taxes because they're not city residents or out, but we're paying their burdens. Our taxes are going up because those properties aren't getting fixed, or the city's not selling to us to rehab them.
I lived in that, okay? Beautiful home, all but they empty in the house.
At the end of the day, that's
Burn
what's
out.
happening.
Okay? Burned out house,
Force you out.
never got to Penny and Home. And I'm next to it.
Our properties are struggling, but the taxes are going higher. So that's why we're all here.
So if you have those issues of not having had someone come in, have us come in. That's what we're here for.
But you went in. You went in. And I'm telling you about all these vacant buildings next to me. You went in.
Sure.
I mean, you know, actually, on West Hanover, on the 400 block of Hanover Street, we've been trying to do so much with these houses. But this is the view that we come in out in the morning, it's all burnt, run down, lived in by crackheads and everything, and nobody does anything about it. Yes, the mayor went by, took pictures, did everything, but to this day, nothing has been done. Okay, remember, and I don't just want to put this out there, but remember a few months ago what happened in Hamilton when the house fell down and the lady died protecting her daughter. Right in front of my house, there's a house that's ready to collapse. And I have put numerous complaints about that. It has to come down. You know how many young kids are running around my street? You have myself, believe it or not, I have 21 grandkids. 21. And they love coming around. But do you think I want to let them play around in the street? The house collapse? Or anything? You have to take a look at where you really have to start doing your production and where do you have to start doing what you have to do.
I understand what you're saying. It's just that's not, I'm a tax assessor. I'm not in the redevelopment department. If there's something that I can help you with, I'd certainly be glad to help you with. If you'd like me to come out, you can take me around your neighborhood.
I would love to.
I'd be happy to do that.
I would love to. I would love to.
The gentleman gave me a letter, need to. It's a simple form like I showed you. The reval is over. They left, they're not defending the assessments anymore. It's just our department. So since I've been here, I don't believe I've been disrespectful to anybody that's asked for my help.
I mean, the assessor, the concept of an assessment, it gets more complete. We get resolved. So I didn't mean it that way, that you're disrespectful. Us, me.
And it's a little bit different. Can you tell me, for the investment property, how are they assessed? In the value of the property or in the income received from tenants? You know?
We look at the income as part of our, pass that back, please. Part of our research into it is what kind of rents they're getting. What the reval company did, if they probably did a market analysis of average rents in the area. Yes. They haven't changed this income, either Social Security or a government pension. So if you're living on Social Security, you would qualify.
That deduction is by the state of New Jersey.
Yeah, it's not our program, it's a state program.
Any one of those people that make that $10,000, I bet you they can't live off of $10,000. Can you
More than $250 reduction.
One of them living off of $10,000 a year or less?
Well, that's excluding either a pension or a Social Security.
Anyway, so with $10,000, how you gonna pay your rent, your mortgage, your electric?
It's a higher,
Even a welfare.
this one is the senior freeze. The income limit for this is less than or equal to $70,000 for last year. So if you meet the other requirements, you've been a resident for the past 10 years, lived in your current home for the past 3 years, then you would qualify for this one. This freezes your taxes at the rate when you become eligible, and then you get a check back for the difference when the taxes go up above that amount.
I got a question. Who is the company that's assessing property for the city of Trenton?
There's no company anymore. So when you have to have the entire city revalued, you have to hire an outside company because
Okay, which company are you guys using to do this?
we're not using any company anymore. It's just our office here. So the revaluation happened in 2017, then they're done. They leave, and then it's us.
Well, who was doing it?
Appraisal Systems was the name of the company.
What's the name?
Appraisal Systems. Systems. Yes.
Is there a contact for that company?
They have a website, but you know they're done with us. They put the values on in 2017. They defended them in 17 and in 18. Now, when you go to the county board, they will not be there. It will just be people from my office.
I think the lady wants to get some information.
No, I don't need it. I don't get it. I just needed the name. That's all.
Anyone else for any questions before the collector speaks about payment plans?
I just have one comment, and then I'm gonna go. I'm on New Jersey's website, newjersey.com, the taxation section of the website. And on the website, it's talking about how your property is assessed. And it says the standard measure of property value is the true value or market value, that is what a willing, knowledgeable buyer would pay a willing, knowledgeable seller on the open market. So again, this goes back to the question I was asking is, from my understanding, a property's assessment has to do with the market value, but you keep referring to them having to go in the property and look at the property to determine the assessment. How is that a factor if it's based on the market, which is what the website is saying? It's based on what a willing buyer is willing to pay a willing seller. So I find it hard to believe that for the state, for everyone who got assessed, Hamilton Township, Princeton, that everybody had someone go into their property asking to look inside their home to assess their property. But
Everyone got asked, everyone didn't say yes.
I
That's
just,
the way revaluations work.
Okay.
So you can say willing buyer, willing seller, and that's all it is. It's just a number that gets traded back and forth. But I'm sure that everyone here would agree that you're going to be willing to pay more for the home that's nicer inside than you would for one that is not. And that is why we need to look inside.
but that's not real estate. I mean, if you picked up my property and put it in Princeton, it'll be worth a lot more than it is in Trenton, but it's the same property. The inside's the same, everything about it's the same. It's the market that dictates what a property is worth. Not when most banks, when they appraise a property, they do it off a market analysis of the area. They may go out and look at the exterior, but it's about a market. You can't tell me my house is worth more than what I know I could get from a house on a market. That's just
you feel that your house is over improved? Is that why you have an issue with
I feel that if I was to sell my property, it would not sell for $125,000 when my neighbor sold theirs for $75,000, and they tried to sell it for more and they couldn't, and they foreclosed, and so it sold for $75,000. And that does affect the market value of my property, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. I can't understand why the city, why they would say, well, we're not going to consider foreclosures and what your property is worth, when it is a factor when you're trying to sell your property. It just doesn't make sense to me, but obviously I'll file the appeal and do what I'm supposed to. I just think that this is wrong, to be quite honest. What the city has done, we have one of the highest tax rates probably in the whole state at over $5. It's insane to me when we're paying $5 for what? For, the front of my house is all beat up, the road is all damaged. Princeton is what, $3, I think is if not less. We don't have Princeton schools, we don't have Princeton roads,
Right,
but we're
you
paying.
can't just compare a tax rate from one town to another.
Oh, of course not, because.
You pay quite a bit more for a similar property in Princeton. That's why their tax rate is lower. So we have lower assessments here, we have a higher tax rate.
Because
That's
the
way that
quality
it
of
works.
life is lower in the city, unfortunately.
Anyone else have any more questions for me before Ed?
How would I get this information? Explain on the screen.
We actually have some pamphlets if you, with a phone number if you want to get a booklet. The booklet's kind of involved, but it's not something that we have in my office. It's comes from the state. You actually have to call them for it, but you can get the application online, and they have they don't automatically send them out anymore. They do have the booklets, but you have to call and have them send it. Fair Street. She's got I'm sorry? Yeah, do you want the senior freeze or tax appeal? Both. Okay. So if that's all the questions for the tax appeal, Ed from the collector's office is here to talk about payment plans.
Hello everyone, my name is Ed Kirkendall, I'm from the tax office. I'm here to talk about like you cannot pay your full tax bill at one time. You do have the ability to make partial payments. Like when a quarterly tax bill comes due, if you don't have the full amount, you can make, a partial payment. You can pay weekly or monthly, till the whole bill is paid. One thing you have to keep in mind, each year the city is required by state law to hold a tax sale for unpaid taxes at the end of the year. You can make partial payments, but for example, if your taxes were $2,000 a year and you paid $1,500, but the other $500 that's still due would then still be subject to tax sale. Tax sale does not mean you lose your property. It just puts a lien against the property for the amount of the unpaid taxes. You can still pay the lien off if a third party buys it. You have 2 years to pay it off. If the city gets the lien, you could contact the tax office and we could set you up on what's called an installment plan. You pay so much down and then make monthly payments until the balance is brought up to date. Yes. Yes, they both, just like any unpaid taxes that go past the due date are going to generate interest. No, I mean on the page.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question so that we can all hear it?
He wanted to know if the interest is different on if your payment plan when there's a lien, when the city holds a lien on the property. No, the interest rate would be the same.
What's the incentive to do the plan then?
Well, if you don't have the money, all the money to pay at once, you can make monthly payments.
And that would happen if I just pay monthly payments anyway.
Well, there's two different things. You can make partial payments before it goes to tax sale. And then if it goes to tax sale and the city gets the lien, then you can sign a formal agreement. The formal agreement, as long as you're making the payments, then the city wouldn't take any legal action like foreclosure. Any other questions about partial payments or payment plan? Once a year. Once a year is the tax. Usually it's at the end of June. Yeah, when it comes to June, if you have unpaid balance. Okay, this is the appeal. And this is the thing about the senior meeting is that someone can set the phone number to call the state. Because the new senior free stuff, they haven't set it up available. And I think you have until like following October 1st to file for the senior.
All right, thank you.
Okay. That's the appeal. Do you want the senior freeze too?
Do I recall the year you guys had an accelerated tax sale?
Every year the city, it's accelerated. Every year it's accelerated. That just means that we have it before the end of our fiscal year, for the current year tax. Well, it always is in June. Well, the normal tax sale, the city's year goes from July 1 to June. If we have the accelerated sales, we have it for June 30th, before your year ends, for any taxes in the current year. If you hold it after July 1 and sometime into the next year, it's just called the regular tax.
Unless you have any, I'm happy to answer any more questions. Yeah, I really didn't know that I was going to be under fire for what happened 2 years ago. I thought I was just trying to help people understand the process.
That's it there.
Yeah, I mean, the 22nd, yeah, something's on it. But I'm surprised that, you know, we have 17 and 18, and it seems like there's still people that didn't file that are upset about what happened, so that's why, you know, we're saying, file now. You know, it's not them you're going to be dealing with, it's us. Well, I mean, we usually don't try to encourage people to, but
Senior citizen over and first class.
Yeah,
And then
they're
they
here
tell
to
you
defend
assume.
the value, and then they're here to defend that value. And then they leave. So they don't get, yeah, you know.
They offer students.
Yeah. That part of that is a product of it being
And
25
then they
years.
come to the deal. We don't do this, and they're gonna believe it. They don't do nothing in my block anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we don't want to do that again. Okay. Deborah, number 5. I wanted to. Vince and I are both data assistant, another assistant. We have a field inspector. So we have a lot of time.
They need to put it on Facebook.
It always has to go to the county when we get a copy. After you file, then you can talk. Yeah, once the book is printed, that's when that printed. Once that happens, everything has to be done by it. So even if we know something happened and something's wrong, there's a mistake, it has to be, changed. And then after April 1st, change the whole file and that's it.
You take care of them.
Right, yeah. The only time we're there,
That's a
we can't contact.
If your tax increase, you pay your taxes, they're giving you more that you pay. Relief from that. And they can help with that taxation.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's for, taxation. And, but I wasn't getting I know.
My name's Deborah Fox.
Down there, that's all that.
I'm in the assessor's
Next year,
Yes, well, once the postcards come out, which is next week, everything that's going to be changed has to be changed by appeal. So no matter what it is, file the appeal and then we can do it. But if you don't file the appeal, I can't do anything until 2020.
And then the seniors,
Senior freeze?
that's 7.
Yes. That's what it was from last year. They've been inching it up, so.
Age is 65.
Yeah, age is 65, 70,000.
On the city website, they put some under the age of 70.
They put in the paper that it was 70. Yeah.
It's the age is 65.
It's 65.
I mean, you'll see that.
No.
All the way to, I think, the senior have to spring into they don't even have the information.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, I think
I'll call back in my office, but I'll just bring it with me when I come in.
then it kind of varies from year to year depending on how much the state legislature appropriates.
That's 2017.
2017. Because it's always a year delay. They look at what the prior year was, then they'll be looking now. You get the notification, they say the increase from 2017 to 2018. And then they issue a check. Well, you probably have to call them to make sure.
I mean, I wish
Some
I
people
could do
who
something
were
about
filed above on the program, they mail out these blue booklets, but if you don't get them, maybe by the end of February, I will call them and. Okay, all right, good luck.
Guys.
But, you know, you do have quite a little bit of time, but right now they haven't sent out the information. They could probably tell you whether you're scheduled, maybe you, I don't know. Everything's with the state, so we don't know whether you could have filed already or not, but they'll be able to tell you. and then make sure they get you the right paperwork filed.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, you're welcome.
You're welcome. Can I help you guys with anything else? Okay.
What happened with the freeze that was back in the 60s?
I don't think they had it
Yes,
back
they did, because I got it. That was 62 years old.
in the 60s. I don't
And
know.
then all of a sudden, we kept going up. I come down there, I talked to them over there in the office, and they said it was canceled out. They don't have it.
Sometimes they get rid of it for budgetary reasons, and then it comes
The
back.
income limit, I think originally in 2017, they proposed it was going to be like 80 something. But then they didn't have enough money.
They didn't have to, yeah.
So that's why
It was 87.
every year they sort of subject to how much money the legislature
Lasted about 4 or 5 years,
appropriates.
and
They
then it started
cut it,
cutting
then
it out.
Yeah.
So this is probably the same thing.
We don't cut it out. It's not our budget. It's the state's,
Somebody
yeah.
did. Wasn't me.
Every time you get a new government, you get new players.
We got plenty that we have to answer for. We don't want to answer for
You
yours.
get new players in the state government, you get a new company, half of them don't know what the